vulnerability really is your strength. It's not your weakness. And even as a performer, that's something that I've tried to become more and more. And I think it's made me a better performer.
Welcome to the Female Entrepreneur Musician Podcast with Bree Noble. Bree is a musician, entrepreneur, speaker, and founder of Women of Substance Music Radio and Podcast. Bree's interviews with successful female musicians and industry pros are both inspirational and informational. She also answers your questions about the music business. Bree is on a mission to help you create great music, connect with your fans, and grow your business, and to truly become a female entrepreneur musician.
Hey, this is Bree Noble, and you're listening to the Female Entrepreneur Musician Podcast, where we talk about making great music, connecting with your audience, and growing your business. And this episode is epic. Like, I actually had to decide to make this into 2 episodes because I had such an amazing conversation with Myla Smith, and she had so many nuggets to share with you guys, so much wisdom, so much experience, that she's been through so many different facets of things that go on in her career that I think you guys can learn from, that I was amazed. Like, I could have talked to her for hours, and we did talk for over an hour. So we split this into 2 episodes. Last week was the first. If you missed it, go check it out. And this one is the second. So I just want you to really soak all this in. And if you need to go back and listen to it again, I highly recommend it because she's got so much great stuff to say. And before we get to Myla and my conversation, I want to remind you, if you didn't hear last week, we just opened the Female Musician Academy and Artist Collective. And I'm really excited about all that's going on in there. We've got great training being put up all the time. We've got expert webinars. We've got Q&A webinars where you can get specific help with things in your career. And we've got the Facebook community that's a private secret group that only people that are members of the Academy can be in. People are in there networking, learning from each other, asking questions. It is just such a great community. So if you want to check it out, go to femalemusicianacademy.com, or you can go to femusician.com and grab our free resource, 19 proven sources of income that you probably haven't considered for your music business. And when you do that, you will get a special discount for the Female Musician Academy. So check that out. We'll also be giving away 1 free month of the Female Musician Academy to some lucky person who reviews us on iTunes. So if you haven't done that yet, go to iTunes, either on your computer or on your mobile device, and go give us a rating and review. All you have to do on your mobile device is just go and search for us under the little search icon and find Female Entrepreneur Musician. Next to the details tab, it says ratings and reviews. Click on that and then click write a review. It's as easy as that. And we will draw randomly at the end of the month to see who wins. So I don't want to give too much away about Myla Smith because we talk about so much stuff. So here's a short little bio about her. Myla Smith is a singer-songwriter from Memphis who has several critically acclaimed albums to her name. Her most recent full-length album, Hiding Places, garnered critical praise from Billboard and CMT Edge. Her most recent project was a live album recorded at the legendary Memphis venue, the Levitt Shell. Well, I noticed that you recently have had, I don't know if you still do, but you've had a PR agent, at some point, and you have different people helping you out on your team. I would love to hear about, the kind of the people that you have involved in helping you, because obviously you're busy with your accounting stuff. Right. And, I hear from musicians all the time, like, if I can't handle all this business stuff, I don't have any time, I can't do any of the creative stuff. How can I write music, when I have to do with social media and, everything else. Right. So who do you have that helps you? Well,
Right now I'm actually kind of in I'm in a somewhat of a hiatus period, from that, because I've got, the last 4 years, I put out a record every single year. And of course, there's a ton of promotion, a lot of fundraising that you have to do to cover those types of expenses, because there's just no other way that you can get that done. Anyway, I was working with a team locally in Memphis called Signal Flow PR. and have a great working relationship with them. That was another piece to me that just felt like such a oh great, some more people that I can actually have to bounce ideas off of, that you feel like you're not alone in this, which is so is such a relief when you are a solo artist, because even if you're a band, at least you have got the other guys in the band, but when you're a solo artist, it can just feel so overwhelming. And you do spend a lot of time, if you're doing everything yourself, you spend a ton of time doing all these things that are not music. They're really just like administrative, promotion and stuff like that. I started working with Signal Flow right after I released Drugs in 2012. And they worked with me all the way through the release of my last record, Live at the Levitt Shell. And then I just decided that I needed to take a much needed break, because like I had put out, like I said, a record every year for the last 4 years. And there was really no juice left for me as far as like writing songs and just having that space to do that. So I'm not working with anybody now as far as like publicity, but I fully intend to get back into that again when I have my next project. So for me, it's going to need to be sort of like a project by project basis. And I think that that's what a lot of people are doing, because the way that I'm kind of seeing the industry evolve, as the labels kind of, the big old timey labels are sort of falling by the wayside, and you see a lot more independent artists coming up. That the great thing about that is the fact that, there's a lot more music out there than there ever has been before. And the barriers to entry are gone. I could record a song on, my laptop today and have it on TuneCore tomorrow. And it'd be on iTunes and, the world. But the downside to that is that, when it really is like everything is up to you. So you are the label. Even at the end of the smaller independent labels, they don't have a big budget to work with. So there's still a lot of it that's kind of up to you. Whereas, with the old labels, they had deep pockets. So they're funding a lot of that stuff. Since it is up to you now, you kind of do have to collect your own team, assemble your own team, and then also the fundraising part to pay for the team. So I'm seeing that kind of that pattern emerge where it's more on like a project by project basis, where you would fundraise through all the different, there's lots of fundraising platforms now that are available to artists. And you kind of fundraise for your project costs, like if you want to do a new record or a new single or whatever it is. And then you can, sort of assemble your team or reassemble them if we're working, for that period of time to promote that project. And then,
okay, so you build the PR and your team costs into the crowdfunding.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes,
that makes sense.
All of that's in there, and in fact, I've seen it like actually detailed out on some people's pages where, they say like, this is what the money is going for. It's for a radio promotion team. It's for publicity. It's for, like, oh my gosh, there's so many different little slivers of promotion and different ways to sort of like put your music in front of people. So,
right, like press releases for, regular press. And,
yeah. All of that stuff. And really, truly, like even as a businesswoman and a musician, I cannot become an expert in all of these fields. Like I can't. So it really doesn't, you can do a lot to promote yourself, but you're never going to be able to do it to the degree that somebody that's actually in that field would do. You don't have the connections, you don't have the skill set, and you sort of don't have time to really become an expert in all of these different things. So that's why they used to have labels. So, they can hire all of these different people and then have them all do it. So yeah, but that's kind of where I'm seeing things, is doing this funding for all of that stuff on a project by project basis. And then you can really put out a record the right way. Because that's something that I've kind of struggled with to figure out, like, okay, the I know what it costs by now. I kind of have a better idea of like what things cost to put out a record the right way, and sort of like trying to balance that with like, how do you do that to be able to put out a product that you're really psyched about? Because I don't really think that anything's going to do well if you don't care about it or you don't really think it's that great. Like, you have to really believe in it and think that like, this was my best effort. This is my best stuff. I love this project. How do you do that when the costs are so high? Like, you just kind of have to figure out a way to do as much yourself as you can, but you still have to focus on the music in order to make it a product that people love. So it's a balancing act to figure out like, how putting your team together, fundraising, music making, it's all kind of a balancing act.
Well, what do you think the cost versus benefit of putting out an EP versus a full-length album? Because you still have certain costs of promotion and stuff, which are the same whether the album is long or short.
Right.
But yet then it will cost less to produce it because it's fewer songs.
Right.
And, some of those, I don't think anyone really believes any songs on their album are throwaway songs, but,
No.
there are ones that are bigger than others. And, so I know you've done both.
Yeah.
What was your experience?
I've done both. I've actually done singles too. So I've kind of tried them all. And I see a lot of people going to singles, like where they're, and when I say that, I mean like independent artists, people that would be like me. I see them doing a lot of singles for the first thing that you mentioned, the fact that like it's just cheaper to make a single. And yes, you have to pay the same, the promotion cost would be the same, but the actual cost to make it and put it out are lower. And so that's what I'm seeing more of, and that probably comes from just a pure cash flow point, because that you don't have to wait so long to build up more money, even though like it's the economies of scale are probably better if you make a full length record because, you're paying your musicians to be in the studio and cut everything at the same time. So usually it's cheaper that way, and there's some built-in discounts when you do any sort of like, a bigger project. Even ordering like CDs, they build in discounts for the more quantity that you have pressed. So, which you'd probably get more if you have a full length. So yeah, the economies of scale are actually better if you do a full length record, but you have to fundraise more, which takes longer and is harder to do. So that's why I think I see more people doing singles, because
do you think people respond to crowdfunding for singles versus albums?
I actually haven't done the crowdfunding for a single yet, and I'm not sure I could speak to that because I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the difference.
I haven't either. That's why I was wondering if you might have seen it.
I haven't necessarily seen the crowdfunding for singles, but I've seen crowdfunding for EPs as small as like 3 songs. So I could sort of see that happening where, you release a single and then you release another single and then you release your third single and you call it an EP, and then you do a crowdfunding campaign for the EP, which pays retroactively for the costs of the 2 previous singles.
That makes sense. I'm gonna have Ariel Hyatt on here and talk to her about crowdfunding in a little bit when her book comes out. So I'm gonna ask her that question.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'll be tuning into that because I really just think the whole thing is like we're all figuring it out. Everybody is trying to figure out like, how is this going to work? Like, how are we going to make music in the future? Like, because I've always said like, my goal is to make music my whole life. I never want to stop. So with that in mind, and a goal being something I have 100% control over. So, I think I can do that. I can make music. But it's the question of like, okay, but how are we going to do it in a way that makes sense that you can actually sustain? That is, I just think we're just going to have to keep learning from other people.
Right. Well, what is the most mind-blowing experience that you've had, like as far as either on stage or, you talked a little bit about your viral experience, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But, what would you say is the one thing that you think, oh my gosh, pinch me, I can't believe this is happening?
Yeah, I thought about that, and probably I've had some really cool experiences. Like, it was incredibly cool when I had a song get on TV, the show Justified at the beginning of this year, and that was pretty darn cool to hear my song, my voice on a national television show. Is pretty cool. But honestly, like, probably more than that was when I made Hiding Places. I had put out, I just sent an email to this producer in Nashville that had produced several records that I was a big fan of. And he didn't know me at all. And I really did not expect to ever hear anything back. But it was just one of those things like, what would it hurt? Why not? I'm just going to do it. And he actually not only responded to me, but asked me to send him songs, and then, fast forward, we ended up, doing a record together in Nashville, which was Hiding Places in 2013. And the experience of that was the first time that I'd, gone away somewhere to make a record. And it was also the first time that I was working with, like, everybody that I was working with was a new musician. I didn't know them. It was all guys that, he worked with and he felt really comfortable with and knew would be great for the songs. And the first week when we recorded, I'm meeting all these people in the studio who have all worked with, like, recently, like as of the previous week, people that were legends. So I've got these people that I'm like shaking hands with, playing songs with, because we tracked that record live. A lot of it was live. So we're all playing together as a band, like in the studio, and I'm playing with the guy that, plays guitar with Emmylou Harris and the keyboard player for Patty Griffin. And, and I'm just like, it was incredibly overwhelming to me in an emotional way. Like that Friday when I drove back to my hotel, like I just remember I was driving down the road and I just remember weeping because it was such a dream. Like I couldn't really believe that these people that were, playing on these people that I would like were heroes to me. I couldn't believe they were playing my songs that I wrote. And it was just almost too much to handle. You kind of never think that would really happen. You say, oh yeah, I would love that to happen, but you kind of you're not really ready for it when it really does happen. And so that was just one of those mind-blowing, like, emotional moments for me, that, like, even as I'm talking about it now, I'm getting a little bit choked up.
Oh my gosh.
Because it was just, it's such a dream come true. And those are really the things that I hang on to. Because some of the other, like, big things, like, oh, my video went viral, but I don't know any of those people, and these were 5 guys that, like, I had ultimate respect for, and they were sitting there playing my songs and telling me, like, this is a great song. And for me, like, nothing could mean more. Like, it was such an affirming experience. So making that whole record really was a huge confidence boosting experience for me. It was very, very formative.
Well, and that record clearly to me is, like, probably your best songwriting. It is amazing. Like, that song Hiding Places, it gets to me every time I hear it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's one of my favorites too. And that is actually, it's funny because, like, before I did that record, I spent a little bit of time in Nashville doing some of the song pitch things to the country market. And that was one of the songs that I played for them. And their comment to me was, well, it's a great song, but I just don't think that anybody is gonna get it. It's like a sympathetic song about, addiction. And I don't really think that has any market. And I was like, well,
what?
I know. But I was like, well, okay, They just,
Oh my gosh,
know.
anybody that's ever dealt with anything like that
I know.
completely identifies with that song.
Well, they weren't my audience, and
Yes, not.
so, but I knew with that song, I knew that an audience was out there for that, because who hasn't, had that experience in their life? Like everybody can point to some person that they know, or even it might be themselves. That's like, oh my gosh, I know exactly how that feels. So, but I'm glad you like it. Thanks.
Oh no, I really do. And I want to know what made you decide to put out number 1 in live album and number 2 only on vinyl. Am I correct? It's only on vinyl?
No, it's not vinyl. It's a double disc, but it's CDs. It's still.
Oh, it's CDs.
Yeah,
okay, I thought it was vinyl.
No, it's a double disc. But it's not vinyl. Gosh, I would love,
because I've seen people doing that lately.
I have too. And I wanted to release Hiding Places on vinyl also. But I couldn't. The prices didn't work out. Like I just didn't think I'd be able to sell enough of them because you can't. It's not like with CDs where you can pretty much print as few or as many as you want, but vinyl works a little bit differently, and so you have to order like a certain quantity, and it's just more because it's just, more delicate process. It's just more expensive to cut them. But one of these days I will have a vinyl record. One day I will.
I got to figure out a way to play it. I still don't have a record player in my house, but I would love to, because I remember the days, there's my youth when I played it.
There's something different about it. Like, we have a record player, and one of my favorite more modern records is the John Mayer Continuum record. I absolutely love that record, and we got that on vinyl, and it is different. Like I listened to that record 100 times, but then when we got it on vinyl and I played it, I was like, there is something different about this. Like it sounded different, and it I don't think that it would work for everything, like especially a lot of like super polished pop music. Like I don't know why you would get something on vinyl like for that, but especially the moodier music, the country stuff, like it really kind of sparkles on vinyl.
Wow. Well, so it's a double disc.
It's a double disc, yeah.
That's live. Okay.
20 songs, and we actually had to cut down a few because the concert was almost 2 hours long. So we had to cut down a few, which I hated to have to make those cuts, but
well, I saw the video and people seemed to be having a very good time at the concert.
It was, man, that was such a great night. A little bit over a year ago, and the weather was absolutely perfect. And, the Shell is an outdoor amphitheater. So you're always risking, with weather, you don't know what's going to happen. And so that night just felt like it had been made to order. The weather was perfect. It was beautiful. There was probably like 1,000 people out there on the grass. And I didn't actually know that until I literally walked out. Like they're playing, like my band is playing like the first, licks of like the first song. And I'm walking like out onto the stage and I see all like 1,000 people. And I was just like, what? 1,000 people here to see me. Like, it was just crazy. I still sort of can't believe it, but it was an awesome night. And then that whole record just like that. I just actually decided you have to decide beforehand that you're going to record it, with the intent, like, this would be a really cool record to put out. Cause I didn't have anything live. And it kind of, when I got that concert opportunity, I was like, the Shell's a historic location. It's a historic venue. I don't have any live recordings. It kind of makes sense to me that I would put this out and kind of be like a little bit of a greatest hits, because the concert has a little bit from every record that I've done, including some of my singles that I've released online only. And, I just thought it made sense, but we're like, okay, but it might be a terrible night. Like we might sound awful, so, I paid for just, the recording, but like, still we weren't sure. But that night, like we were just on, and it felt like the energy is what I really love the most about that record, because when you hear it, like it just, any kind of live record has a different energy than something that's cut in the studio. Even if you record it live in the studio, it's still going to sound different. And so I love the energy from that night, because I just it takes me back there. I remember like how excited I was, and how kind of like I felt so rock and roll. Like I don't always get to say that, but I felt so rock and roll that night. I got to play my electric. I had my full band behind me. I was on this big shell stage, and so it was just a cool night.
It's a pretty neat looking venue. I've never seen it, and I thought, oh my gosh, I should have gone there when I was in Memphis, because that's really neat.
It is cool. They actually spent I can't remember when they built it, but I know that Elvis Presley like had his first concert there.
Oh my gosh.
So,
wow.
Yeah. And then a whole bunch of other people over the years. So, and then maybe like 5-7 years ago, somewhere in there, they spent a lot of money to revitalize it, put in a new sound system, and it sounds great now. So they have a big concert series during the summer. Yeah.
And how has the live album gone over with your fans? Did they respond?
Oh yeah, they responded. It's been great. I'm always encouraged. Anytime I get somebody that actually wants to buy physical, and with this record, I only released it physical, just because I was like, this is kind of a special. It's kind of a special thing. And, it's like this was one moment in time. This is a live record. It's a double disc, all of those things. I just felt like, let's do something that's a little bit special, in how you would get it. Cause I kind of did feel like it was going to be more for like real fans that, wanted to actually like hold the record and look at the photos from the night. And all the artwork are just fan photos that they submitted, like that they took that night. So that was pretty cool. Yeah. So I'm always encouraged when people do want physical, because I think that it's more of like a fan thing, to actually want the actual disc.
Definitely. And I hear still people say, oh, nobody's buying CDs anymore, but I disagree. Like if you really wow your fans, if you have super fans, they'll buy all your CDs.
Yeah, I would say that for sure. In fact, I've got a couple of international fans that always buy physical, and I'm continually amazed because they don't have to do that. Like it would be so much cheaper for them to just download it, because we wouldn't have to pay for the shipping. International shipping is pretty steep.
Right.
So, but they don't. They always buy physical of everything, and I'm always like so surprised, and pleasantly so, because like they want to hold it, like they want the actual like signed copy. And so because like the physicals, I sort of do recognize that if you're buying physical, like it means that you really are like a real fan. I always try to put in little special things in the packages, like little lanyards, just to be, notes from me, and little extra things just to be like, hey, I really appreciate this. It means something to me. So,
yeah.
So
that's cool. That's a special connection.
Yeah. And that's what I really love about music the most, is that it's connecting ability. And I think that that's more important than ever, because we're living in like this extremely disconnected world where we're more plugged in than ever before, but people feel very disconnected from one another. And right. I've always thought that music had this amazing ability to connect. You hear a song and you don't know the person that's singing it or wrote it, but you relate to it. They're like, and suddenly you feel like that person understands you. And they don't even know you. And there's just this amazing connecting quality that I love. And I think it's very powerful. And so it's, to me, like trying to be more and more available to my, like showing my fans that like, hey, like it does mean something to me. Like it's really cool to me that you connected with my music, and, I'm try to like acknowledge that by, taking some time to write them like a handwritten card. And then also just trying to be more and more honest in my lyric writing, which is hard because you have to be super vulnerable to do that. But trying to be more honest because I think that honesty connects. I mean, that's when you hear a song and you're like, oh my God, they get me. That, that is the piece of that that's connecting is that honest quality. Like you said something that sparked something in somebody else. And you just can't really fake that. Like you can't be clever and make that happen. Like you just have to be honest. So that's what my focus is more and more is just like, is this song really honest enough, without like, sharing all my skeletons for somebody else. But that's what's great about art, is that you can be poetic about it, but you still need to be honest.
Okay, so I'm going to appeal to your business side now, and I'm going to ask you about your streams of income. People that listen to this show, part of our thing is entrepreneur musicians. So I'm trying to help people get a handle on the business side. And so people like to hear kind of where you get all your streams of income from. Is most of your money from shows or from CDs, or is it from licensing or, songwriting royalties? Where does it all come from?
Yeah, for me, and I think this is probably true for most independent artists, is concerts is the biggest one. And then I would say licensing second. I'd love for it to be music sales because, that really is kind of like your main product. That's what you're putting out. But it's so hard. Like the market kind of won't allow you to price CDs and merchandise for what it costs you to make it. So you kind of, your margins are pretty slim. Yeah. And then like iTunes and Amazons and all of those things, like they already have their set, like this is what we're going to sell it for. So you don't really have any say in that.
Right.
But so concerts really, because you just have ability to net a lot more if you don't have to, if you don't have extensive production costs, like paying the venue a big cut or having to pay a bunch of band members. Like concerts are probably the biggest one. And licensing is something that I've gotten into in the last couple of years, but always really wanted to pursue that because if you can get into it and get connected and get a great like song pitcher placement person, you have the potential to make the most money there because really it's just, it's the cost you already incurred to make and record your song. And you could even, if somebody else is, depending on what kind of artist you are, you could even do a demo and have somebody else cut it. But the licensing money, is really just like all gross to you. So I'm really excited about the future of licensing and for songwriters, for singer-songwriters. It seems like a great avenue to pursue. Like I said, if you can get into it, because a lot of people want in, and there's, not like, there's not, that many slots for everything. But I've had a couple songs, like I said, I had my song on Justified earlier this year, and I've had in a couple of different commercials, regional commercials, different songs here and there. So I think that is pretty exciting for independent musicians also, because if you own all of your masters, you own all the rights to your music, which most independents do, then it's a lot easier to negotiate contracts for licensing because they only have one person to deal with.
No publishers, no co-writers. Yeah.
Right. As opposed to like a team of people. They don't have to get permission from anybody else. It's just you. And so it's cheaper and easier for them. So I think that independents actually have an advantage in that way. And a lot of music that I hear on television shows, especially like the ABC shows and CW, I recognize who the artists are, and I know that they're an independent artist. So I know and they still might have like, a team of people working with them, but they still own all the rights to their music, which isn't, you can't do if you're on a label. So I think that's kind of exciting.
It is. I see stuff all the time come across my email of people on Women of Substance that, are announcing my song's going to be on this, my song's going to be on this show, and it's great. I see it a lot more than I ever did when I first started the station in 2007.
Yeah.
So
and
it's definitely
by
increasing.
the way, time out. I just wanted to say I love the name of your show.
That's good. Some people don't get it. Like literally one person called my house and said, is your show about people that have substance problems?
Oh my God, no.
I was like, what? First of all, I don't know how they got my phone number, but they actually called my house.
That's a scarier question.
Yeah, I don't put it online, so I don't get it. And then someone else said, oh, is it for people that are overweight? Like women that are overweight?
Oh no. Well, you need like a substance abuse line, like just to have ready,
right.
Like in case
you're calling for this, right. Here's the number.
Right, here's the
Al-Anon.
Right, here's the right number to call. No, I did not think that. No, I love it. I love it. Because I just love it. I love what you're trying to do, and I love that that's actually the name because there's so much fluff, out there, and I feel like you can be a woman of substance without being a downer or, something like people are like, oh, like we're going to get a lesson in something or like a soapbox. Like it just means like standing for something and like actually trying to do something meaningful. And
right. And sometimes my standing for something is definitely about lyrics, but sometimes it's about, wow, this is just a really well-crafted pop song. Like maybe it's not about something that's, like super deep, right. But it's so good.
Yeah.
The quality is so good. So I always say, the substance can be either about the lyrics or just about the quality of what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I love it. I'm a fan.
Thanks. Well, obviously I'm a fan of yours because I've played something off of like every single one of your albums.
Oh, thank you.
Do you have a book or an online resource that you can recommend to our listeners that maybe you've used to help you in your music business or your creative side or even just like self-improvement?
I am a big self-improvement junkie. Like I read those books all the time. But the one that I finished most recently and it had a big impact on me was a book called Daring Greatly. And it's written by a social researcher named Brené Brown. She had a TED Talk a couple of years ago.
I've heard of her. Okay. She's she speaks at different places too, right?
Mm-hmm, she does.
Okay.
She's the speaker. And why it meant so much for me as a writer is because she did like 12 years of research on vulnerability and kind of like how it affects people, the different implications that it has. Like it's sort of this thing that everybody's afraid of, right? I mean, it's what we try to avoid most of the time. And she wrote this book about it based on all of her research called Daring Greatly. And she talks in it about how like vulnerability, as much as you try to avoid it, really is the birthplace of all creativity. And it's an extremely powerful book, like, because it's really, I mean, she's not like, a writer per se. Like she's kind of just like saying, okay, here's what I found. Like, these are kind of like, these are the facts. Like, this is what I found out through like, years and years of interviews with men and women. And, I just, it really sort of like solidified for me this idea that like in your writing, like vulnerability really is your strength. It's not your weakness. And even as a performer, that's something that I've tried to become more and more. And I think it's made me a better performer because you always think like, well, I need to be like, I need to be on for this performance. And a lot of times, like the most affecting performances are not when you are just like killing it. It's when you are you're performing your own song in the most honest way. And if that's a sad song, it may be that, you feel all of that when you're performing it. And it takes vulnerability to do that, but that's what really connects to other people. And that's what can have a lot of power. And I saw that firsthand when I was at I mentioned before, like I have a heart for young girls. And I was doing a performance in St. Louis, and there were it was an all ages show, and there were several girls in the audience that were like 13, 14, 15, that age. And afterward, one of them had come up to me, and her mom was like, "You're her favorite artist. It just means so much to her that she gets to see you in concert." Number one, that blew me away, because I was like, I'm somebody's favorite artist. Like I really couldn't I just couldn't believe it. And then afterward, I was talking to this, I went out after the show with another friend, and one of mutual acquaintance of hers had come along, and she was this girl's like youth leader. And she just told me, she was like, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know, I thought you did a great job." I'm like, "Yeah, thanks." She's like, "No, really." She's like, and I'll just call this girl Mary. I'm Mary's youth leader. And, she's actually like, I've gotten to know her really well. And she told me a little bit of background on sort of like her parents, and her parents are both these sort of like what I would call winners, like in the business world. Like their jobs are always like kind of like they have to be on all the time, handshaking and stuff. And she said it means a lot to her to be able to see a woman up there being vulnerable. And I, like, it just blew my mind when she said that, because I had read this book and I really wasn't connecting it. And then I heard that and I was like, oh my gosh, like, for her, she saw that as like this incredibly powerful, strong thing that you would allow yourself to be vulnerable in front of other people, and that it could actually be seen by, this 15-year-old girl as something that was so strong. And that to me was just like, she couldn't have said anything better to me. It sort of reinforced that point for me, that actually is what people want.
Yeah, I'm hearing that more and more, and seeing that in people that I work with, and trying to encourage that in artists.
Yeah.
Because you're right. Sometimes artists, especially as indies, like, we feel like we need to compete with the big people.
Oh, totally.
And so it's like, we need to be perfect on stage, and no one needs to know, don't let them see you sweat and all that.
No, I know. And that is still there, because, I'm a human being. So like, it's always what you're competing with, like that feeling of like, I need to be on, I don't want them to see me sweat. Cause I want to be taken seriously. I want to everybody think I'm legit. So you're definitely competing against that. But to somebody that's young, and sees you, to them, it's like, oh, I could do that. Like, she seems like somebody that I could be like her. And in a way where they're kind of like, because you're up there doing it, like you're actually up there doing it. You're on a stage, like you have to be brave to do that. And, so, when you show that piece of like humanity, it connects them to you, and they're like, oh, I could, maybe that could be me, because if you're kind of larger than life, like, people don't ever think that they can touch you, or I could never do that.
Right.
But so I just think that it's really cool to try to explore that as an artist and as a performer. If you want to.
Definitely. What's the name of the book again?
It's called Daring Greatly.
Okay, Daring Greatly. I'll put that in our show notes for sure.
It's a good one.
Well, I can't believe it. I've had such a great time talking with you.
You too, Bree.
Our time is up.
Oh, no.
But can you tell people how they can find you online?
Sure.
Your website, social media, all that, maybe where you're playing sometime soon.
Sure. Yeah, you can find me. I'm on everything: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And my website is mylasmith.com. So if you want to find me on Instagram, it's at Myla Music. Twitter is at Myla Smith. Facebook is Myla Smith Music. And then I'm playing. My next big show is I'll be playing at the Moon River Festival at the Levis Shell again, which I mentioned. So in Memphis in August. And I'll be opening for Need to Breathe, which, yeah, I'm pretty excited about that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for spending this time with me and taking it away from your accounting clients.
Oh, yeah. Don't worry. They don't mind.
Oh, that's good. But thanks a lot. And it's been great to catch up with you after all these years of like emailing
I
and,
know.
and music and all that.
It's so great to hear your voice. You actually
I know.
sound, it's because I can't look at you when we're talking, but you actually like sort of remind me of the lady from Serial, the pod.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, that's cool since I'm a podcaster.
Yes.
So I appreciate that.
Maybe it's just the podcast voice. I don't know. I don't
That's
know.
Funny. I'll have to go back and listen to that and see if I sound like Sarah Koenig.
Yes, that's her name. I couldn't remember.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I was obsessed with that podcast.
Were you? See, I have not. Everybody I know was obsessed with it, and I just haven't gotten into it because I knew I didn't have time to be obsessed with anything. With launching, 2 podcasts in the last 6 months, it's just like, I don't have time. But
whenever you do, though, if nobody spoiled it for you yet,
no one spoiled it for me. I didn't listen to them. I said la 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 la. They started talking about it.
It's very addictive. But yes, you sound a lot like her.
Oh, cool! I'm gonna check it out. Okay, well, I am so glad to have talked to you, and it's been great, and I can't wait for everybody to hear all of your wiseness.
Oh, thanks so much, Bree. I really appreciate it. Thanks for being a champion for all of these women. I really appreciate that.
I love doing it. Now go out and make great music, connect with your fans, and grow your business. Female Entrepreneur Musician has been brought to you by FEM13 and FemaleMusicianAcademy.com. With editing by Jen Eads of 317 Sound Design and music by Stella Ronson.